I have something really special today. Kristina Lakhiani is my guest today on Landria Onkka on YouTube. We're going to talk about becoming flawesome. What does that mean? Well, she'll explain that in the interview. I wanted to share this amazing interview with you because she is the co-founder, along with Vishen Lakhiani, of Mindvalley. That is an amazing platform of spiritual teachers from health and wellness to even business. And as you know, I believe in perfect balance in your life. That means all parts of your life, from your relationships to work, how you earn your money. It's all your life. So I look forward to sharing this interview. I also have the podcast link here. It'll either be up here somewhere or down in the description, along with the link for her book, Becoming Flawesome. So let's get started. So welcome everyone to this exciting interview that I was just over the moon when I found out that I had the opportunity to interview Kristina Lakhiani. If you don't recognize her, you might know the name. She's the co-founder of Mindvalley, an amazing platform for spiritual coaches, health and wellness, and some business, you name it, every area of your life. She is one of the founders of an amazing platform that brings all these wonderful coaches together. But I had the opportunity to interview her for her book that's just come out. Is it already out now?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And it's called Becoming Flawesome. Now, those of you who know me, you know that I teach breakthrough fear, and my whole platform revolves around what we're going to talk about today, and that is the human experience doesn't mean eliminating all of these things that we go through. Fear, we're always trying to be perfect. We're always trying to get to some place. We don't celebrate the journey of that human experience. And so I want to ask Kristina right now to just share a little bit about her background, and then let's go into the book, and I will have some questions that are in your book synopsis that I'd like to cover. We don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to try and hit as many of these points as possible. So welcome, Kristina. Can you share a little bit about your background?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your platform and for introducing me. You actually did mention the most important points in my background, which is that I'm a co-founder of Mindvalley and what Mindvalley is about. It's actually, for the past 20 years, that has been the main thing that I do. But of course, like any other human being, I have a lot of other facets to me and a lot of other things. My life is not just work. As amazing as that work might be, there are other things in my life as well. But I was born in a country which doesn't exist anymore. Without wanting to be cryptic, it's Soviet Union. I was born in Soviet Union and raised, and that probably has left a pretty big mark on the way I see the world or I interact with the world. And that also meant that neither business nor personal growth were part of my reality or worldview. Business was illegal, personal growth was frowned upon. So when I grew up, I wanted to work for the government because I wanted to be a diplomat actually, because that was the only way I could imagine I could see the world coming from a very closed country. And then it just happened so that I got married at nowadays it seems like an early age, 25, but all those years ago it wasn't so early, and moved to New York and had to start from scratch. And it just happened so that my then husband Vishen started Mindvalley, and I helped him with it. So that's how I ended up in an industry that was not ever in my plans before that.
Oh, wow. Well, that I did not know this about where you were born, and that really brings a lot in because you see the world very differently and have had different experiences and different cultures.
Yeah,
not living in a fishbowl, obviously. So you got led into the whole spiritual, I don't want to say movement, but it is a movement on the planet in a very positive way, not as a trend, but where we're going. And then you went through this personal changes and decided that you were going to write this book, which was very bold of you because it's very cool. You know, it's not easy, especially when you're the public eye like you are, to come out and reveal these personal things, right?
Well, this book, it's important to understand that the book isn't about me at all. And I don't, I do share stories from my life, but as an illustration to certain points I'm trying to make. The book is about anyone, for that matter, finding path back to themselves. And surprisingly, people, even when they read the book, they wouldn't piece the story together, because it's, you know, I take my own experiences as an illustration, and the journey is built as the journey of finding your path back to you, and not based on my own life. It's interesting. People keep asking me about the courage and all that, but the thing is that I'm a writer in addition to other things, and I've written all my life without realizing that this was something that I enjoyed doing. I kind of kept writing when I was asked and when I wasn't, and it seemed like I enjoyed it the most. So I think writers write, and for me, writing a book wasn't really much of an accomplishment. It was just a natural form of self-expression. But then, of course, everything that comes with publishing the book, that's something which I'm very proud of, because I'm still surviving this journey.
Well put. I know how that goes. Yes. That's great. You know, I want to, if you don't mind, I want to start to go into some of these points, and I'm going to like go through these very quickly, but these are some of the things I'd like to talk about. So the things that you discuss, some of the highlights are the dark, controversial side of personal growth, the insecurities that thrive on it, what authenticity actually is beyond the buzz. We hear that all the time. Be your authentic self. I personally really don't even know what that means anymore. Self-care versus self-love, why you need both. And then I hope I'm pronouncing this right, the Hermione syndrome?
Hermione.
Hermione syndrome. Oh, hello. Because you're going to explain that to me. Hermione syndrome.
Yeah.
Okay. And how to diagnose if you're secretly suffering from it. Oh, we got to go into that one. How to create aligned lifestyle habits that stick. Our audience is definitely going to want to hear you share your points on that. Why the more you judge others, the more you judge yourself. Yes. Societal masks, how to remove them from your psyche. That's a big one. We live with this every day. And no matter how awakened you think you are, you have to deal with all of that of society, right? Imposter syndrome in the world of high flyers. You business people out there who are going to be watching this. Yeah, the imposter syndrome. Yep. And then of course we're going to talk about emotional literacy, how to cope with strong, painful emotions healthily. All right, we've got to talk about the syndrome first. I've got to understand this.
Well, I have to make a little disclaimer. You know, all these are the points that my marketers picked up from the book, and I think I have to sit down and come up with a proper chart of how the personal growth industry is messed up, because I actually don't talk about it in a systematic way in my book. It just occasionally I make a stab at the industry, which I've been part of. I think, you know, it's like self-irony is probably a healthy thing. So, but I don't have a course on that.
Right.
So, but Hermione syndrome is there is a much more familiar word, which would be perfectionism. I chose to use Hermione syndrome. I call it Hermione syndrome because it kind of it felt a little closer to what I was trying to convey, and also not so familiar, because we're kind of so used to perfectionism being used as a word left and right, and a lot of the times people use perfectionism as you know, when you ask, for example, somebody comes for a job interview and you ask, what's your biggest flaw? And they say, oh, I'm a perfectionist. And I get stuck in tasks. So we almost diluted this meaning to the point where it doesn't carry any weight anymore. So that's why I chose to replace it with Hermione syndrome, just to shake up a little bit the things. So Hermione is this character in Harry Potter. So in Harry Potter, they have three main characters. And the girl, Hermione, she's a very good girl. Well, with witch qualities, and she is very diligent. She's following the orders. She's very proper, and that's what I literally mean. It's a lot of us women who retain this Hermione throughout the life, to be very good, very proper, do the right thing, be diligent. So yes, perfection is probably a little bit more familiar word, but that's in essence what Hermione syndrome is about.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. And you talk about the journey. And okay, we're talking about perfectionism, imposter syndrome, authenticity. I mean, all these words reek of us really not feeling like we could be ourselves, especially in the world of spirituality, even in business. We're always trying to be something else that we think people want us to be. And spirituality is like, deemed craziness by some people,
Yeah.
and so people hold back on things that they want to talk about. And in business, I have to be somebody else. So let's talk about that perfectionism and, what did you convey in the book that you want to share right now?
So the point about perfectionism is more like a prequel to the whole thing. And as I said, it's what marketers picked up from my book, but literally they ended up at the most interesting point, because the book is a journey. It's not a very common personal growth book, as in it doesn't revolve around one idea. It is a journey that goes from from multiple landscapes. So the first half of the book, in essence, is laying ground for the juicy thing, which comes in the second half of the book, because I believe that for anyone to find their path back to themselves, they do need some essential safety skills to survive the journey. And that's what literally the first part is about, which is about perfectionism or emotional literacy, for that matter. But you said the key word as you were asking a question. You said we are trying to be all those things that we think that society wants us to be. And that's the key word, the think. You think. I think that, well, I think, you think, I think. I believe that it doesn't really matter what society wants you to be. It doesn't really matter what your family wants you to be. And I understand that some people would say that their society, their country, their families more restrictive and they don't have the free choice, but that's not quite true. I just want to remind for those people who have read Viktor Frankl's legendary book, Man's Search for Meaning. And Viktor Frankl was writing, for those who don't know, Viktor Frankl was writing about how he and a whole lot of other people survived Nazi concentration camps during World War II. And one of the meanings, or one of the ideas in this book, which I think is remarkable, is that he says that even in the most dire circumstances, you still have a choice. Yes. You always have a choice. Even if your choices are limited, there is still always a choice. So with that in mind, very often when we say that somebody wants something from us, and that's why we perform in a certain way, I know it's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's our choice to subscribe to those expectations.
I love that. I mean, that's the crux of my personal teachings, and that's difficult for people because you have to be bold. I mean, because approval is something that most people seek, and it is difficult for a lot of people. I mean, you have a much more outgoing personality. People like ourselves don't find that as difficult to, break through. And I'll give you an example. I just brought on a new student yesterday, and she said, I watch your channel. And she said, you have so much fun. You speak and you don't care what people think. My latest thing is I have all these different hats I wear. And she goes, I would love to just wear hats and just be myself. And I said, well, it's a choice. I just choose it. And so that approval you need, who is it you're trying to get approval from? Yeah. Who is that other person that you want to say you're okay is not okay themselves if they're in a place of judgment. So even in business, and I want to talk about the imposter syndrome. I just shot a video on Instagram and I said, the worst thing that you could do for your business is to try to emulate somebody else who's successful because you think that's going to do it for you, because then you stop being you and you're trying to be somebody else who, maybe
Who's
Tony.
already taken.
Yeah, and I said, you're not going to be Tony Robbins, so you better be yourself. And so I always tell people, for me, the key to great success is to step out of that box and do something very different and get very creative. When you go into that expansive creative space, to me, that is where the doors open up, right? Because then you're in passion. You're not really worrying so much about other people. You go into this place where you're feeling that joy, and all of a sudden you really don't care what other people think. But most people, they are trying to, be something else, and then they feel like they're not good enough. So they feel like they're being an imposter because, like you said, society says you have to earn so much money or be this experience to be a coach, or who am I to tell people to do things? So what can you share about the imposter syndrome? What are some points where business people in particular, and spiritual people, obviously?
So if you don't mind, I'll actually leave imposter syndrome at peace for now.
Yes.
I'll get back to that maybe a little later. I wanted to comment on something which I found very interesting. You said you need a lot of courage to, I'm paraphrasing, I probably don't remember the exact word, but you need a lot of courage to embrace what you are, to be yourself.
Be bold
And not care. Be bold, which I understand as having courage, to not care what people think. This is one way to embrace yourself, through fear, and find courage to do that. Another way is a little bit, it requires a little bit roundabout way to explain, but basically, why do people look for approval? Very often we look for approval because we are not sure. So you kind of think that this is a good thing. Let me show it to the world and see if the world likes it. And if the world likes it, then I'm convinced that it's a good thing. And that's how we've been brought up. It's kind of natural thing, like the kids. Mom, did you see? Mom, did you see? And we stay with that dependence on someone telling us that we are worth it. Yeah. That's also the reason why so many people go for success, because they need that approval. And I'm not saying just the Instagram likes and comments. I'm talking about that someone else tells me that I'm worthy, because if it's just me, then what if I'm just self-obsessed, selfish, delusional, whatever it is. So because we can't give it to ourselves, we tend to crave for that approval from outside. Now, another way to embrace yourself is not through courage to show the true self to the world and hope that maybe somebody will approve, but to give yourself that which you right now are looking from outside, and not depend on the approval from outside. And that comes through self-love rather than through courage.
Yes. And we talk a lot about wanting other people to be a certain way also, because this is a very, very interesting subject, because most of the students that I work with, very loving, caring people, and they want the best for others. So they tell me, but I want them to be awake, and I want them. And I said, that's judgment. And they said, no. I said, no, it's when you say better, that,
I know.
Yeah, you're saying you're not okay. And they said, no, I'm not. I said, yes, you are saying, because you're flawed, or you're choosing lower frequency choices, maybe not to behave so well. That's a choice. You're saying you're not okay, and that is equal judgment. It's interesting because we sometimes don't catch ourselves in that cycle of wanting others to be okay, because we don't value the journey of making mistakes, lower choices. And that's how we learn. That's the contrast of being human, right? When we make these lower choices, that's how we understand and evolve.
I would actually refrain from even judging the quality or the level of choices.
Yes.
Because let's start with a definition. What does it mean to be okay? Right. What's okay for you might not be okay for someone else. Exactly. Might be completely not what they want. There's one thing that I've learned in 20 years in personal growth, that there is no one recipe fits all in this industry. Different people require different different solutions for their problems.
Exactly.
Not just that, you today and you 5 years from now probably required completely different things. And you 5 years from now will require something new. Even further than that, for example, me in love relationships versus me in business versus me in parenting might need completely different approaches. Somewhere, maybe I need to be more audacious, and somewhere, maybe I need to be a little bit more present and more accepting. They're completely two opposite solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So to say that you know what somebody else needs is a little bit presumptuous.
Yes.
And a little bit unfair and unjust.
Yes.
And I would also venture to say that it's a little bit delusional.
Absolutely. And
I could go deeper.
Please do.
I lived in Soviet Union. Soviet Union built in communism, which was supposed to be that idealistic society where money didn't exist and everybody received whatever they needed from the state. So people were, Soviet leaders thought that people, or at least they told people, that you will be happy because you wouldn't have that one thing that ruins people's relationships, which is money.
Right.
So somebody said that they know what's good for me and made choices for me.
Right.
And maybe in the origin of that idea, there was some seed of something which was good, but then it was based on blood and injustice.
Yes.
And it survived for so many years. So, almost every religious fanatic, child soldier, populist politician, they're all either hearing that or saying that out to people that I know better what you need.
Yes. That is the human condition and that is what we're talking about right now. It's like you just said it. I think I know what's best for you. And that individualism, has taken a turn for the ego's power and control, which distorts the original meaning of what that was supposed to be again. And we go back to choice. And I just always say, there's nothing evil about money or abundance at all. Everybody should have it. It's what each individual does with it that determines the outcome of the use, or whether it's for themselves or to control other people with it. So how do we move past all of this? I mean, you talked about being authentic, but how do we become authentic without infringing on each other's free will?
Well, it's the thing is that
Kristina, you have all the answers to the world problems. Right? Just break them out. I know that's not an easy question.
No. I would now need to start with no. Of course, I don't have answers to all the questions. But regarding authenticity, we have to start with definitions. We can't talk about phenomena without defining them, because we can use the same word but mean different things. Yes. Even if you talk about abundance, very often abundance, the way it's used in our industry, has nothing to do with financial wealth.
Right.
And we try to stretch that meaning still further, which I believe that if you don't define phenomena, you're not you can't really go into studying them. You will do a disservice to what you're doing. Every science starts with definitions. So when we talk about authenticity, my definition of authenticity, well, I have to give it with a little bit of a context. So authenticity is only defined by anthropology, and it means being true to yourself, which we kind of understand. So if we leave aside everything that we think about authenticity in terms of personal growth, authenticity, the essence of the word, means being true to yourself. Mm-hmm. So in my book or in my teachings, when I talk about authenticity, it's not even the goal of my teachings. I mean your relationship with yourself. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because if it's true to yourself, it's only about you. So mm-hmm. authenticity is your relationship with yourself. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't have a direction. The moment you give authenticity a direction, it stops being authenticity and becomes something else.
Right.
So to say that your authenticity is going to influence the world in one or another way is a little bit counterproductive, because we are not talking about authenticity. Yes, if you sort out your relationship with yourself and you change, your relationship with the world will start changing, but it's not because you're projecting your authenticity out into the world. Authenticity is about you and your relationship to yourself, which means it's about you staying true to yourself, to your values.
Mm-hmm.
And that, of course, is going to impact how you interact with the world. But the moment you give authenticity a direction, it becomes something else entirely. It can be sincerity, it can be honesty, it can be something else, but it's not about authenticity anymore.
Yeah. No, I think that's beautifully put, because I don't think people realize that. That's that other side of the ego and power and control, trying to be something again. You're right, is not authentic. And it is a natural behavior pattern for humans to always want to have that control over everything, right? And I mean, even we don't even realize we're doing it. Like I said, even when I talk to spiritual students, I said, can you let everything just go? And then they try to analyze that. And I said, no, I'm talking about thoughts. I said, you can manifest with no thoughts. And they can't even comprehend that. And I said, ultimately, so then you're not coming from a place of control anymore. When you do that, you're just going to a place that allows things to come to you beautifully, just the way it should. And as humans in this experience, we have chosen, and I believe this, we have chosen all of it, all of the trials and tribulations, the challenges, the interaction with each other, and everything comes down to the choice you make in every moment of that journey, right? What choice am I going to make? How do I speak in this situation? Can I have a nicer thing to say, or I call it neutral, or say nothing at all? And that, it's a lot of work to live every moment in awareness of how I'm going to project or, speak or act. And so, that's that whole authentic thing, being respectful to other people and the planet, and still being myself, like I said, without, infringing on free will. That's a fine line, because we've got to deal with all kinds of personalities out there. And
we maybe have to start with the beginning of what you were just talking about, control.
Yes,
I think control is an illusion, and I'll quote one of my favorite books. It's Bulgakov's Master and Margarita. In the very, very beginning of the book, it has this funny episode where Devil meets with two people, ordinary people, and he says that you guys think you have control, and then they have an argument, and then the devil says, like, but how can you have any sort of control if you're mortal, and what's worse, you're suddenly mortal. So, and then of course the next thing that happens, one of the characters gets killed accidentally in an accident. So the thing is that control is an illusion,
yes,
whether we like it or not. But letting go doesn't mean that you don't put any effort into influencing your life in one way or another. And that's, again, I think this interesting tendency that we humans have. We want things simple. Give me a recipe, give me 1, 2, 3, give me what to do, what not to do. So because when you are told that there is no recipe, you have to balance, you have to dance, you have to make a step forward, a step backwards, that your life is not about knowing, it's not a military march, here's the steps, keep going. It's actually a dance where you need to notice what's going on and make decisions based on what's going on. So this is not a very pleasant kind of suggestion. People say, no, give me one way or the other. But that's the irony. You have to let go.
yes.
And people get let go to the extreme. That means that I will just lie in bed and just keep manifesting. But then you also have to kick your own ass. And that doesn't mean that you are holding on tight and you need to control everything. That comes from us going into absolutes and into extremes, rather than seeing that one is possible with the other. You can completely be at peace with what's happening with your life, with everything that goes on, completely be at peace with people being stupid and the situations being stupid and whatever it is, and still do everything that you can to change things.
Yes.
They're not mutually exclusive.
No, you're right. And I think one of the things that we deal with most too is non-acceptance. And when we go into acceptance, that's when you go into real peace. And acceptance is, like you said, just dealing with all of these things. It doesn't mean that you're letting things go, because we have this image that so I'm not supposed to do anything. And I said, absolutely not. In fact, more action is more powerful when you come from a place of accepting. And when you don't accept, that's where struggle happens. Struggle is non-acceptance of this situation or that happening, and so I said, you can end the struggle, but what we don't ever end is, and this is not good news to a lot of people, is there will be fear, there will be pain, there will be loss, sadness. And that for me is the most beautiful, painful, not desirable, but experience of being human. And if we miss that, we miss the whole point of being here, because when we're beyond that, we don't get to experience anything quite like this. You named the book Becoming Flawesome. Can you explain, what that really means to you?
Well, the word flawsome actually came after the book was ready. I found it on the internet. I was like, yes, that's perfect name for my book. We actually injected it in later edits into the book here and there, but you won't even find a proper explanation of that. So I have to do it now on interview.
Yeah,
So,
which is great. I love it.
it's about recognizing your imperfection. It's
Yeah.
not about choosing to be imperfect. It's about recognizing that you are imperfect.
Right.
And finding strength in that rather than letting it become your weakness. So that's a very short explanation of what it means.
Yeah, we're our own worst enemies. I think we're more critical of ourselves than anything. I have flaws, or I'm supposed to be perfect. I mean, we look at social media, and there's all these amazing filters, which I love, that make us look perfect. And now we're getting more and more into that. It's like, how much more perfect can we be, and what are we gaining from that? I don't understand the gain from it, because you'd never escape the challenges. We never do.
Well, perfection is not even in the nature of nature. It's not in the essence of nature. Nature is imperfect, and that's how it's been evolving.
Yes.
Through things being a little bit abnormal. Otherwise, probably nothing would happen perfect. I think only chemical elements without soul are perfect.
Yeah.
To a degree. But that's an illusion, to think that you are perfect, or to think that you could be perfect. And I think people who are just incredibly self-critical, recognizing their flaws, they're actually one step closer to truth and to peace than those who are not even ready to recognize their imperfections. Because at least they're aware of their imperfections. All they need to learn right now is to see the beauty in the experiences that you have, rather than curse them. Somehow Viktor Frankl comes to my mind so much during this conversation, but he's said it the best, and I'm paraphrasing him. He said that pain stops or ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning. So it's not like everything that happens to you is for the better, but things happen, and it's your choice. You're going to take it. And you're right. Yes, there will be everything in life. That's the point of life. People can't numb their emotions selectively. It's a scientific fact. If you numb the unpleasant emotions, you will, together with them, numb all the other emotions. It's like, like if you eat very spicy food, you will stop tasting the subtle sensations. So the same with emotions. If you don't want to feel anguish or grief or despair, that means you will never feel the extreme pleasant emotions, whether it's passion or euphoria or something like that, because your ability to feel is just going to be numbed.
Right. So we talked about, there was a definitely a point I was looking at. So, well, let's not go to lifestyle. Well, I love the more you judge others, the more you judge yourself. I mean, I think it's probably safe to say that you believe that we are all very much connected. Um, when we talk about the societal masks, it says how to remove them from your psyche. Is that really possible to remove them? I mean, we're in it every day. We're on it, on the internet. The societal masks, they're there in our face all the time. How do you
Well,
remove those?
it's not about other people's masks, right? I mean, the whatever's out there is out there. It's not. It wasn't probably created by us, and it's not ours well, to judge it for that matter. But when it comes to masks, in my book, it comes in the context of us playing different social roles in different social circumstances, which is absolutely natural. But it's a journey. So it's right now I'm taking a piece of a story out of like a storyline. So basically, at some point, it matters to talk about that we have different roles that we play in our life, and without going too deep into this chapter, just some main ideas is that it is a natural thing for us to adapt to our social circumstances. It's not just natural, it's healthy. It's extreme not to do that. Now, the problem comes with us prioritizing certain social roles over the others, which is also natural, but that happens based on society values. So, for example, if you are a woman and entrepreneur, you would society puts more value on entrepreneur, as horrible as it may sound. So very often, if women see the conflict of their roles, they would choose to perform as an entrepreneur rather than as a woman. Or let's say if you are a career woman and a mother, since society values career above motherhood, you would naturally prioritize the role which society values as higher. And now the problem arises when we start getting attached to the roles which are societally more valued, and we're forgetting the real person, because it's just a role that we play in certain circumstances. It's not what makes me me. So a very maybe drastic and funny example would be being an influencer and forgetting that you're also friend to some people, right?
Yeah.
Or being a busy dad and coming home and forgetting that there you're a dad, you're not a busy, entrepreneur. So that's where the problem arises, when we start identifying ourselves with certain social roles, betraying the true person. And that it comes in the context of trying to understand how do we lose ourselves, because we kind of suffering from Hermione syndrome. We're trying to do all the right things. And doing the right things means choosing success over our own well-being, because that's how society is wired. You have to choose success. That's how you receive love and admiration. When you're successful, people admire you. They give you what you think you need. So that's just how that path starts. It's paved with good intentions. You want to be good, you want to be liked, you make choices which you think makes you more liked and better. And then you start betraying the true you. That's context in brief.
That's really a great subject, because it's been coming up a lot. In fact, a friend visited me and actually purchased an award and filmed herself getting the Academy Award. I said, was anybody there? She said, no. I said, I want to come. I want to dress up. I said, what are you giving yourself the Academy Award for? And she said, because I put on the most amazing act in all of these different situations. And I said, well, when do you end that? What is it you're afraid of receiving on the other end if you give that up? And it is disapproval. And I said, what we do is we're conditioning other people also. So one of my commenters on my channel said, watched my video and I went, well, you gotta be careful about the advice we give. I said, it's just my opinion. But she said she decided to tell her daughter and son-in-law that when they go back to work, she will not be watching the kids. She says, because I have plans for my life, and she did it in a very polite, nice way. And they stormed off, never to be seen again. And so there are consequences to that, right? And that's what I think most people avoid. But she was very happy with that decision. And she said, I will welcome them with open arms. But she had to go with her own choices then at that point and stated in a very loving manner. But there are consequences. What's your opinion on that? Because
well, I don't want to comment on this particular situation because there's a little bit more complexity to it than just choosing you. There are also, there's always family dynamics, which I don't want to interfere with.
Right.
It's a huge difference when you make a choice about your own life, which might influence other people's decisions. So let's say if your choice is to go study and that means that you won't be in the vicinity, for example, I'm just giving a very random example, in the vicinity, and you won't be able to do what you used to do for your family, then you have the right to that choice. Now, if you're staying in the same position, nothing changes in your life, then that's a little bit, I guess that's more a cry for help rather than an actual choice. It's like maybe I've dedicated too much of myself to the to things which are not mine. But then again, who am I to judge them, because I don't know the particulars of that particular situation.
Right.
Yes, if you change, your relationship with the people will change naturally. Here I'd like to quote a wonderful movie. I think it was Hobbit. I tried to remember if it was Lord of the Rings or Hobbit, but I think it was Hobbit. And if those who haven't seen the movie, there's this Hobbit who goes on a journey and goes through a lot of adventure. And then before he starts on the journey, he asks Gandalf, who is the wizard and accompanies him on the journey. So he says, will I come back? And Gandalf says, I can't promise you that. And if you do, you won't be the same old hobbit. And that's the thing that matters. Yes, you will change. And when you change, your relationship with the world naturally will change. Will it become more complicated? No, I don't think so. I think that there will be people who will misunderstand you, who will be hurt, but it doesn't mean that your relationship with the world will become more complicated. I think, if anything, it will become better. It's just that change in the system usually comes with upheaval and some kind of chaos. And why I'm saying that I don't think it will be more complicated, because, there's this theory of systems, and the systems work when the information in the system flows freely without any disturbances. Now, if you learn to sort out your relationship with yourself, you become honest with yourself, you're present for yourself, if you become authentic, that's like removing a blockage from your cell in the system. And I think as a part of a system, you function better. Now, of course, in your system, there may be pieces which will just not match that system anymore, and you will lose them. Now, one very important thing that I want people to understand: being yourself is not the same as being inconsiderate, rude, or imparting unasked opinions. It's not about saying, hey, I'm just being me. Usually when somebody says, hey, I'm just being me, it's a prelude to some uninvited and probably painful comment.
Yes.
So it's not the same. You can stay true to yourself and to your values and still function properly in the society without any, damage to it. It's we sometimes overestimate the influence of our social context on us, and underestimate the value of just because you're true to yourself doesn't mean that you have to go out and tell everyone how they're wrong, or judge them, or or demand respect for yourself. If somebody doesn't respect you, just turn around and leave. Offense is freely given, but it is a choice whether you take it or not.
Yes, I love that. And you're right about that. People think, well, I'm just being myself. And this is where we have to have the discussion about, like, okay, so what does our world look like at that point then? Because within being authentic, we still have that choice of being the kinder person, the more giving person, the service to others. So I can still be me, but I can do it on a different level that's going to affect people in a very positive way. And then be the me that, like you said, is not the same anymore. So that's why I always say, like my dad used to say, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Zip it, Landria. And I went, okay, and it was true. It's like, it's okay to say nothing sometimes, and examine yourself and determine whether or not I'm being myself, but is that the self I want to be? And then we have the choice to change it and become something much more amazing. And I think we're going toward that. I see it. A lot of people don't, but when you're exposed to a lot of people on the internet, you get that feedback, which is really valuable. And I have very positive feelings, and very hopeful for our future, because I think people are becoming more awakened to the fact that they have to make higher choices. Because I think for a very long time, those choices we made of being authentic was, oh, I can do anything I want because I'm being me. Right?
Well, I think humanity is a beautiful collection of creatures. Our problem is that we are wounded, and we don't let ourselves heal. So I have no issues with people doing silly stuff, because it's, let me give you an analogy. If a child is let's say naughty and unruly and breaks a vase, you probably are not going to think that the child was malicious and did that because they wanted to hurt you. You'd probably understand that they just didn't know better. So that's how I usually try to see other people acting out weirdly, or being hurtful, or even being unjust. I remind myself that it usually comes from their pain, from their. So it's not the question that, do I have issues with them? I have issues with the fact that we as a society don't deal with healing our wounds. That's the only issue I have. We really need to be kinder to ourselves, to come to peace with ourselves. Then we'll stop torturing the rest of the world.
Yes, exactly. And that is so true, because I call it breaking the chain. We have to break the chain of your anger and fear coming from your parents, who came from the grandparents. I said, for everybody who has been abused, I guarantee you there's abuse in their background, there's fear in their background, and it keeps getting passed down. And I do feel it is our responsibility is wanting to be better humans, or having a much more meaningful experience, to break that chain of programming or anger or fear, and seeing past it, and still being, like we talk about, having flaws and all that stuff, and accepting that too, not trying to be perfect, but knowing that sometimes there are just better ways. It's very difficult for a lot of people to go into that, anger and fear and all of that, especially nowadays. There's a lot of that out there, and we're exposed to every day.
I wonder, I really can't judge. I don't know people 200 years ago. I think they had different ideals or 100 years ago. But I think humanity is good.
I do too. I think we came here that way. I said, if you took the kid out in the woods and, they were brought up as the wolf child, they wouldn't have all of these issues and ideas and beliefs. I said, where do they come from? We get these things passed down.
I wonder, yes, of course, but that's how anybody learns. It's like this, contagion, social contagion. You learn by emulating others, and that's kind of natural. I think animals do that too. And yes, a lot of the things are social construct, but if a child was brought up by the wolves, the child probably also would learn to act on every single sensation that they feel. So if they feel hungry, they'll eat whatever they see, even if it's somebody else's sandwich. And if they feel angry, they'll lash out, because it's a human construct as well, that you can place a space between your emotion and your choice. And
Absolutely.
that's a wonderful human construct. I think that's what makes us so different from all the other living things on this world, on this planet. Yes, we are messed up, but we also have advantages which we shouldn't forget.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say, without the person who's ill, the caretaker doesn't have that beautiful opportunity. And without the child who needs to learn, there's no teacher. And so we sometimes don't recognize how amazing these opportunities are for us to become something great, in challenges. And I think that should be embraced. But it's difficult sometimes. It doesn't always feel good, to see the yeah.
A lot of things don't feel good.
A lot of things don't feel good. I want to just sort of look at this again. Okay, so I'm going to ask you this big question again. Emotional literacy, how to cope with strong, painful emotions healthily. How would you suggest that?
Well, without having to give out everything that's written in the book.
Right. Because you're going to go buy the book. You're going to go buy the book. Yes.
It's such a topic that it could deserve its own training. I think I would just give the premise to that. I think we live in a world which is a little bit not just numb with emotions, but also a little bit dumb with emotions, because we don't know how to experience them. From a very early age, we hear what we are not supposed to feel and how we're not supposed to feel. So very often we start judging emotions, that this is good, this is bad, this is this is unsavory, this is suitable. So we rather than just taking emotions for what they are, and emotions are just signals, which are passing, by the way, we start judging and putting them into different boxes. And so I'll give you just the context. So there is such a condition in medicine which is called congenital analgesia, and it's a condition when a person doesn't feel pain, physical pain. So what happens is that children who are born with this condition, they don't survive to adulthood because their bodies just break, which is quite natural. When you touch a hot surface, you feel physical pain, and that signals that you have to remove your hand. And let's say if your pain doesn't go away, it signals that you have to apply something or treat the wound because the wound is still there. So kids who are born with congenital analgesia, because they don't feel physical pain, they die because their bodies just don't survive to adulthood. We as a society have trained ourselves into emotional analgesia, which means is that rather than taking emotions for what they are, which are just signals, just not from our physical body, they're signals about our life, that something needs our attention. Yes. We try to either numb them, with painkillers, and I'm not meaning painkillers as painkillers, but the things that make us feel less. Right. We either try to numb them or patch them up or brush them away or push through them or ignore them or pretend that they don't exist or say it's beneath me. There are so many ways how we know how to not to deal with emotions, rather than just do, let them do what they do the best. They come, they pass the signal, you get the information, and they move on. Emotions don't stay. So even if it's anger, if it's even grief, everything, it all moves on, it passes, it brings you information. And the only thing you need to do with emotions is hear the information. Yes. Well, and then in the bigger context, of course, make conclusions and everything. But again, I don't want to go too deep into that, also because we've talked for a bit already, and I don't want to bore you with another deep topic.
You would not bore me. I love this. I love it because it's so healthy, because like you said, there's no one way. And, we're always striving for something. When we talk about emotions, and this is the big one, you wake up at 3:00 in the morning and most people sweating and what could be, and the fear of things that might happen that never do. And we struggle because we don't want those feelings. And I always say exactly what you just shared, and that is, look at them. What's causing this feeling? And there's a solution to it. Is it that I'm going to lose the job or the relationship? So instead of, not wanting the fear and saying, I don't want this, I don't want to feel this way, say, okay, why am I feeling this way? And let's try to find that solution to this, because it's another opportunity for a challenge to be resolved. And there's something great to come from that.
And sometimes there's anxiety because you do not know the solution. And even with the things that you don't know how to solve, and you don't always need to know how to solve your unpleasant emotions, there is a very good question that helps with quite a lot of emotions. What does this emotion tell me about me as a person, about my personality, about my values? Yes. For example, grief for loss of a dear person. There is no solution. The person is gone, and you still feel the grief. Yes. But it does carry some valuable information for you, and just allowing it to be, maybe it's a reminder of the blessings you have had in your life. Maybe it's a reminder to stay closer to people that you still have in your life. There is always something to be heard. Yes. Even if you don't know the solution, once you hear, then the emotion has served its purpose and it can move on.
Yes, absolutely. And I always say, like, especially with grief, like you said, there's no bringing that person back, and that's real pain. I said, sometimes it's just a choice of saying, can I celebrate this instead? Can I seek something different that is still authentic? It's still authentic because I'm feeling this pain because I do love them and I did want them in my life. And, so maybe I can celebrate that, and it doesn't always, cure the pain, but, we talked about choice. Choice is always there. Like you said, you could be locked up in prison and no one controls those thoughts or emotions. You are 100% in control of them. And that's not easy for people to come to terms with, So I'm very excited for this book. And of course, I've, read everything that was sent to me. So I won't, like you said, go into anymore because we're coming up on the hour. And
yes, I would have a very hard stop.
So I would just like to say thank you so much. Is there anything you want to say? I think you pretty much said so much. No, seriously, you've shared so much. I so am appreciative of this. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
What anything you'd like to say other than you can buy it on Amazon, and and also Mindvalley is selling the book also?
Yes, Mindvalley is selling the book, and you can buy it on my website as well. It's when you buy it on Mindvalley or my website, it comes with bonuses, of course.
You heard that. You know what? I'm going to get that link. I'll talk to your wonderful person that's going to supply that information. And everybody, I'm going to include that link so that you can just go straight into the Mindvalley site. And thank you, Kristina. This was absolutely amazing. Such a pleasure to meet you. You're beautiful. And thank you for shining a light on this planet. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.